That is the first time the tires have been on the ground in like 15 years. When I first was working on this car, I couldn't even attach the dolly because the sway bar mounts were rusted out and stripped. This is a huge moment.
Garage time.
I'm just trying to get this car drivable in September. There's a car show coming up. So I'm really happy. 2 out of 4 wheels isn't bad. Still got a lot of time, but I work by myself and I tend to overkill things. So let me show you what I did this week to get the tires on the ground. Nope. These are the original bolts, Comex, or Comax, I don't know, 8G. So wavy washers on both sides. I'm gonna keep these, probably have them replated. Am I building a fire? Maybe. A lot of people like these 356 hubs for 911s actually because they're the narrowest of all the hubs. They will go on the 911 spindles, but if you want to run wider tires, this is how you do it. You use 356 hubs. Here's a 911 hub just for comparison. Okay, this goes in the electrolysis bath. this stuff is just sitting on here. So I'm scraping like this. I'm not digging the point in. I'm just using the round side. I don't know what that's called in a dental office. Maybe it has a term for it, or maybe they don't use it that way, I don't know. It doesn't mark the metal at all. I know this water is really dirty, so it's time to clean it out. I think the bottom of the ultrasonic cleaner is caked with debris. So this has got a nice drain to it. Wipe out the bottom, and we'll do part 2 on getting those hubs clean. You can see them up there. This is just Dawn dish soap. Dawn won't attack the rust, but this stuff will. So I'm gonna go with the Scotch-Brite pad. One of my favorite phrases for overkill is polishing the cannonball. And that's what I feel like I'm doing right now. The faster thing to do on this would have been to blast it. And I know there's all kinds of different material and soda and vapor and all kinds of fancy things. In my opinion, the factory never had a blaster. So it does change the surface finish. And even if you use the most delicate stuff, I kind of prefer the gentle approach. And so, like I said, this takes longer, but I'm able to see the finishes that were sanded by the factory. This is the machined surface that was machined by the factory. This is as cast. And I kind of like to leave it as original as possible. And so that's why I didn't blast it. Also, the finish on the studs is the factory oxide finish. And so when you blast it, you kind of lose that as well. These are the original NSF studs. If you've been here a while, you know I do a lot of unconventional things, and I'm removing the races from this hub that's now clean. And to do that, I put a TIG bead along the inside of the race, all the way around. And once this hub cools down, right now I'm holding onto it with a paper towel because it's still pretty warm. I did both sides. Once the hub cools down, those races should drop out, and that's because I know when you weld something, it shrinks. Reason for doing that, as opposed to just pressing it out, is that it's less likely to mar the surface. You only get a few changes of the race before that surface, gets galled up. You push them in and out too many times, it gets galled up. So I'm trying to preserve the internal diameter of the hub, which is the aluminum, and I can obviously sacrifice the race. Those normally don't come out that easy, and the bore still looks pretty good. The rotor is out of the electrolysis bath now, and so now it's going to get the wire brush treatment. I'm going to use a power tool, but this black is kind of what you want. That means the process worked. Okay, this is hot. It's about 300 degrees, and these are cold. These came out of the freezer. So we're going to drop these in, push them down with this. I don't believe you need to fill this whole thing up with grease. In fact, it's really just enough grease to get on the race and then pack this full. So I just try to jam this in here. These bolts with original plating are pretty much good as new, so I'm going to use these as is. And then I got to look at my pictures to see if the bolts come from this direction or the other direction. I can't remember. Also, the manual only calls for washers on one side. I'm putting them on both sides, so just snug them up for now. That's a really good sign. The suspension is actually moving. Of course, there's no shocks on it, no sway bar, but the fact that it moves and doesn't bind like that is really good. Many of the details in this video have been covered in previous videos before. I now have a huge library of all sorts of how-to tech tips. So if you're interested in learning more, like how I set up the link pins or rebuilt the front suspension, I'll put a link in the description below. But the video looks like this. Also, if you're interested in the rust removal, the electrolysis bath, I used a couple different methods in this video. That video looks like this. A video on the ultrasonic cleaner and how that works and the materials I use for that. Also, fixing the backing plate that was cracked. I actually welded something that was only 22 gauge. If you're interested in painting the backing plate, I have a system of Rust-Oleum. I use a 2K hardener in it. It's a semi-gloss. I include my recipe for that. Please have a look at some of the other videos in addition to this one. There's a lot of good information. If you have any questions or if you can't find a video, always reach out and ask. I'm happy to help. I have a table of contents that makes it pretty easy for me to recommend a video if you have a question. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.